Hello, I am Nicholas Jersa, and this is my presentation on paranoid schizophrenia. So, what is schizophrenia? Schizophrenia is a degenerative disease of the brain that is characterized by distorted perceptions of reality. These distorted perceptions are known as psychosis. Psychosis, as a definition, is a series of symptoms that affect the mind that make an individual lose contact with the real world. So, what is paranoid schizophrenia compared to regular schizophrenia? Well, paranoid schizophrenia is a description of a one of many subtypes of schizophrenia that focus specifically on the disconnection of friends and family and the hallucinations and perceptions of entities that do not really exist, that an individual is being followed, or that something is watching them when nothing may even be near them. So, what are the phases of psychosis? There are three phases of psychosis: the prodrome phase, the acute phase, and the recovery phase. The prodrome phase, some individuals may never make it to the acute phase from the prodrome phase. The prodrome phase is pretty weak when in its symptoms, and the brain may recorrect itself before it ever gets severe enough to hit the acute phase. The prodrome phase, however, in regular individuals would be minor signs of cognitive dysfunction, and it can be caught and treated, and you will never get schizophrenia if you catch it early enough. In the acute phase, you can never get rid of it at that point. The acute phase is the highest level of cognitive dysfunction you can have in schizophrenia, and individuals who make it this far will experience the maximal amount of hallucinations, disconnections, and confusion. The recovery phase is reached through medication and therapy. Once you reach the recovery phase, you have to make sure you maintain yourself and maintain your therapy and your medication in order to stay in the recovery phase, or you can fall back into the acute phase. So, what are the occurrences and causes of schizophrenia? Stress and genetics. Stress and genetics can be characterized kind of into the same bubble, however, because it is considered oxidative stress. It can be caused through your genes, or it can be caused through environmental factors such as outside stresses, such as work or overactivity. These oxidative stresses can lead to a number of different pathways, which can cause a number of different dysfunctions, which can all cause schizophrenia. The anatomical cause would be the deformation of brain tissues. So, deformed brain tissue sends chemicals to places where those chemicals should not be, or on pathways that don't make sense for the brain, which then cause the confusion. Overlapping chemicals in a regular individual would be deja vu. However, on a mass scale, it's schizophrenia. What's the cellular understanding of schizophrenia? The image that you see is a synapse with the axon terminal, the synaptic cleft, and the dendrite. In schizophrenia, the synapses are completely dysfunctional. And it could be for a number of different reasons, really. Structural abnormalities, receptor abnormalities, so complete failure of the receptor protein to absorb the neurotransmitters, or neurotransmitters that are not transferred properly, or the wrong neurotransmitters hitting the wrong proteins and still accepting it. The proteins that control these neurons and their neurotransmitters are controlled by your genes, and those genes that can be affected by those stresses could be the cause of the dysfunction of those neurotransmitters or of the proteins that accept them. What medications are there? There are first generation typical agents and second generation atypical agents. First generation typical agents are no longer used. They had a lot of side effects and they did not work that well. They were not very effective in treating it. However, they treated it enough that most individuals with schizophrenia could get by. However, as time went on, second generation atypical agents were created. They are a lot more expensive and they also create a lot more relief for those with schizophrenia without having to damage other parts of their body. They're typically very expensive and only given over the counter, whereas first generation you can buy online or on the black market. Therapies are also very important to those with schizophrenia because they usually help reconnect people with families, such as family therapies, which help create those connections again, connections that they did not originally have after gaining their condition because they did not trust them. Stress therapy also helps to prevent the furthering of schizophrenia by taking away those stresses that caused it in the first place. You kind of will sit at this stagnant position where your schizophrenia will not get worse, but very minorly get better. So, what's the conclusion? What's the overall takeaway of this? Paranoid schizophrenia is a horribly detrimental degenerative disease to those individuals who have it, and the awareness should be increased. And I want to create awareness for those who have paranoid schizophrenia. After going through all the research and going through all the information, paranoid schizophrenia is an awful disease, and those individuals who have it end up getting depression later on. The dysfunction of the signal transduction causes warped perceptions of reality. Those warped perceptions can really damage an individual's brain and what they believe is true, and that's eventually what leads to that depression. Treatments are still being created. The research for those treatments are still being researched to this day as schizophrenia patients begin to increase and the spread of it begins to increase as well in modern day. And furthering that research and furthering the awareness will help fund those new medications and those new treatments to try and help those individuals who have those problems. I have been Nicholas Jersa. I hope this was informative, and bye bye.